This is a philosophical mind bender. I'm a big fan of British humor, and I love British comedy in particular. One of my top picks for this is the film The World's End, featuring Simon Pegg, and it's basically a story about four old high school buddies getting back together to complete a pub crawl across their local town called the Golden Mile, something that was supposed to have been done when they graduated, but never did before they went their separate ways. Along the way, which included shenanigans like getting into bar fights, crazy bar fights, and of course, getting caught up in your average alien invasion that happens in every movie, and following up with an apocalypse. The movie is pretty crazy and it's some real hilarious shit. But underneath all that insanity, there's something deeper and darker that I want to take on in this video, and that's wrapped up in the protagonist, Gary King. During our high school years, Gary was the leader of this group of friends and was your typical cool bad boy, attractive, rebellious, and the king in all things socially relevant. There wasn't anything that he couldn't get his friends to do, wasn't a girl that he couldn't shag, and basically seemed like he was a man of destiny and was destined to do great things. And the Golden Mile was going to be the culmination of all of that potential, being on the verge of a fun-filled adventure and just life in general. Yet, in the beginning of the movie, we find out that this is not the case, as he apparently becomes an alcoholic and just a general failure in his post-school life. The reunion with his friends is his last attempt to reclaim some of his old youthful energy and vigor and naivety that he once had. The reason why he sticks out to me is because of this extreme contrast in worldviews. We all know a Gary King at some point in our lives, or perhaps we were the Gary King, that guy who was so charismatic, so dominant, someone who seemed like he could do anything, that there was no one that anything could do to stop him, and no one was going to tell him what they can do because basically life was our bitch. That essentially is Gary King. None of the darkness that shows in his older self is there when he first attempts the Golden Mile. And while not being a malicious kid or bullying by any means, he does genuinely believe in his own hype that he ruled the school with. The phrase piss and vigor fits this dude perfectly. But life shatters this self-induced invincibility. The movie doesn't show exactly what happened in detail or anything like that, but it does seem that Gary's recklessness does catch up with him after school, and that he seems to be unable to handle the real-life difficulties that he comes across. While in contrast, his buddies eventually carve out lives for themselves, and yes, they have their own hardships, but they seem to be able to deal with it pretty rationally. And this does not happen with Gary, who instead finds himself hospitalized because he's now on suicide watch. Basically, that adult Gary is a hollowed out self of what young Gary used to be, a shell that slowly becomes more appealing to adult Gary, and not just because of the time that he could control his life, but when he actually believed in something as well, something worth living for, something that the only thing was left was the Golden Mile. And he hides this reality from his friends until he gets into a fight with his bestie at the last bar, forcing a confession out of him. Gary is trying to desperately hold on to the last shred of life that means anything to him. And it's ironic that the alien apocalypse that takes place is what eventually snaps him out of it. When offered the chance to eventually reclaim his youth by the aliens, in a manner of speaking, Gary at first is enthralled, seeing his younger self and just getting caught up in the moment of seeing what he used to be. And after that, he then refuses the offer and beheads his younger self. Because Gary comes to realize that what the aliens were offering was actually another form of control that he had been running from his entire life. That the reason why he hated being hospitalized and why he was just so angry at the world was because everything was trying to control him rather than him controlling his own life and his own destiny. Moreover, Gary's own ego rejected the idea that he, Gary fucking King, could be replaced by anybody. By rejecting the ideal that had been haunting his adult life the entire time, Gary actually succeeds in reclaiming what he once had, allowing him to thrive in the post-apocalyptic England that takes place after the movie. What I like about this is that Gary's journey is very relatable and familiar. I've seen many of my friends from high school and college go through this dilemma. Some of them make it, and others have a hard time with it. But all of them had to wrestle with the aspect that factors in life would always try to control them and warp any ideals that they had when they were younger. Personally, I was never a Gary King, but I've had my own struggles where it could have become easy for me to look back at my younger self and think that if things had gone better, or if I could relive those times, that I would be happier currently as well. But, like Gary, I had to decide that I was the one who was in control of my life and not anyone else. Not my past, not social rules, or anything of the like. And that I was not going to be discarded by the system just as easily because it managed to put me in an acceptable role, so to speak. I don't have a golden mile, but I do recognize that Gary's shift in philosophy is in myself as well as other people who I've known, and that we have also had to make similar decisions. That our lives are our own, and just like our destiny, we have to keep claiming that and not let others take that away from us, nor allow ourselves to be basically discarded because maybe factors in society or life no longer see us as being socially relevant. But what do you think? Do you agree with that thought or philosophy or not? Or do you think something else entirely? Let me know in the comments below. And this is the Philosophical Mindbender, and you guys have a good day.
Just what is it that you